I'm a tech reviewer living in Chicago. Earlier this month, I received a review copy of Apple's new iOS 14 on my iPhone. One of the new features that came with iOS 14 is called sound recognition. When activated, the software activates the user's microphone to identify sounds that would be useful for a person who's deaf or wearing headphones. The phone can identify a dozen or so different sounds, including sirens, doorbells, and the sound of water running, amongst others. I wanted to see how well the feature worked, so I turned it on and went about my day. After I rode my bike into the office where I work, I checked my phone and saw a few notifications from the app that looked like this. Car horn, 15 minutes ago. A sound has been recognized that may be a car horn. Dog barking, 16 minutes ago. A sound has been recognized that may be a dog barking. I thought that was pretty cool. I'd heard both the car and the dog on my bike ride to work. The next two notifications threw me off though. Shouting, 18 minutes ago. A sound has been recognized that may be a person shouting. Shouting, 18 minutes ago. A sound has been recognized that may be a person shouting. It's not like it would have been overly strange if I'd heard shouting. I live in Chicago after all, but I hadn't. I'd been actively listening throughout the whole ride, and I definitely hadn't heard anything that could be called shouting. At the end of the day, I turned the sound settings back on and took the same path home. This time when I got home, I saw a few similar notifications. A siren from an ambulance, a few car horns, and 3 more notifications of shouting. I was baffled. I'd been specifically listening for something that might be misidentified as shouting and heard nothing, so I decided to pull on my detective hat. I knew from my phone's display that the shouting had been recorded at 5:23 p.m. I also knew that Google Maps records its users' locations at all times. All I had to do was go check exactly where I'd been when the sound had been recorded. I opened my laptop, flipped over to my timeline on Google Maps, and scrolled to the time that the shouting had apparently been recorded on my phone. There. I had been biking along a 50-foot section of road during the 2 minutes that my phone had recorded the shouting. I zoomed in, looking for an elementary school, a playground, anything that could explain what I'd recorded. When I saw what I'd passed, I sat back shaking my head. The only thing on the other side of that section of the sidewalk was an old cemetery. No way, I said to myself. There's gotta be... No way! I trailed off, staring down at my phone. I switched apps and ordered some takeout, still thinking hard. It was way too strange a coincidence for me to just dismiss, though. Were there mourners inside the cemetery? Even if there were, why would they be shouting? And why hadn't I heard them? I was still thinking through possibilities when my doorbell rang with my food. My phone buzzed, I looked down and read, "Doorbell, just now. A sound has been recognized that may be a doorbell." I turned off the feature before getting to my feet and grabbing my food. I decided I had to go back to the cemetery and see if there was something there that my phone could mistake for shouts. By the time I'd biked back out there, it was already dark. The cemetery was old by most standards, with a winding concrete path that split it in two, connecting the 2 city streets on either side. I rode into the middle of the cemetery, hopped off my bike, and took a few steps into the grass. The cemetery was old and poor. The city still probably paid someone to cut the grass, but they hadn't come out for more than a month. I was confused at how quiet the night was. If you've ever been in a big city like Chicago or New York, you know that it's almost never silent. You'll always be hearing the sound of a car horn off in the distance, or someone playing their music, as if the rest of us want to hear it too. Tonight was different though. Standing in that cemetery, it was as if a hush had fallen over this corner of the city. Even the leaves around me were still. I hovered my finger over the app, suddenly unsure if I should turn it on. Curiosity overcame my hesitation, and I activated the feature. My phone immediately began to buzz. Shouting, just now. A sound has been recognized that may be a person shouting. Shouting, just now. A sound has been recognized that may be a person shouting. I was at a complete loss. There was nothing for my phone to misinterpret. I walked up to a nearby tombstone and turned on my phone's light to read the names. An infant son had been buried with its mother and father sometime in the early 1950s. My phone continued to buzz. I looked down at the new notifications. Baby crying, just now. A sound has been recognized as a baby crying. Shouting, just now. A sound has been recognized that may be a person shouting. Baby crying, just now. A sound has been recognized that may be a baby crying. I crouched down in front of the grave, steadying myself against it to try to get a picture of the names. That's when I felt a small, pudgy hand wrap around the pinky finger on my left hand. It was warm and wet, like the hand of an infant. I fell on my back, staring at the tombstone. I skittered back along the tall grass of the cemetery and saw I was still utterly, completely alone. At least, it seemed that way. My phone continued to buzz. I ran, picked up my bike, and rode out of there as fast as I could. The other night I was bored looking at my phone like usual. After a few hours I got hungry, so I left my phone on my bed as I ventured into the kitchen to find something to eat. I guess I was gone from my room for about 5 minutes as I grabbed some chips and made a cup of coffee. I returned to my room, turning on my laptop to watch Netflix and abandoning my phone for a few minutes. About 10 minutes into my TV show binge, I looked down to see I got a notification from Instagram. It was just someone liking my picture. I was just about to turn away and go back to the show I was watching when I saw another notification under the new one. I have an iOS 11 iPhone, so I have the screen recording feature. My screen had a notification saying screen recording saved to photos. The notification was from 15 minutes ago, which was about around the same time I had returned to my room from the kitchen. I was perplexed as I didn't remember recording anything. I assumed it must have been an accident on my part, but went to look at the screen recording just to make sure. I went into my photos and the newest thing was a video that was 4 minutes long. I pressed play and watched as I saw the taskbar pull down to reveal my lock screen. My phone passcode was entered and Safari opened. In the search bar was typed a website I'd never heard of before. It brought up a site that looked pretty old, as the design was really simple. It appeared to be some kind of chat forum, but the odd part was it was in a language I couldn't recognize. It was probably foreign, I guess. The recording showed the site being scrolled through for a few minutes. If this whole ordeal wasn't off-putting enough, it got much weirder as I saw the contents of this website. It started off seemingly normal enough with only text, but then images started showing up. The first few were dark and hard to make out, but I could make out what appeared to be figures and small specks of light here and there. I continued scrolling through, but the images became more eerie. There were a few images of people through windows, some people walking in parks, and what looked to be people getting out of cars at nighttime. Then came the videos. They were very short, each one only about 10 seconds long, but enough to freak the average person out. The contents of the videos themselves weren't creepy, but the place from where it was being filmed. It was just people doing normal things, reading on their beds, watching TV on their couch, cooking dinner. However, these things were being filmed from what was obviously a hiding spot. You could see the door and wall framing the sides of the video as the filmer watched from a small crack in a closet door. The filming was shaky and you could hear the breathing of the person behind the camera. It was odd. The breathing almost sounded sinister, if that's even possible. I clicked on my screen and saw that the video only had about 45 seconds left. I watched as the screen scrolled up and pressed a button that, when I typed into Google Translate, I found out said submit. My camera roll came up and I watched as it scrolled through about 15 pictures of me that I didn't even know were taken and on my phone. How could I have missed that? Granted, I hadn't been on my photos for a few days, but how could these photos even been taken without me noticing? I live alone, so it can get pretty quiet. And being the paranoid person I am, I'm always pretty observant of my surroundings, jumping at every small noise and looking behind my back constantly. One photo was clicked on, a photo of me folding towels, taken from the old storage closet in my living room. The photo was uploaded with a caption that I also translated saying, "Another day closer." After the photo was uploaded, the screen went back to my normal homepage and the screen recording was turned off. A mix of absolute terror and confusion. I opened a new tab on my computer and typed in the URL of that website. I scrolled through several newer posts and eventually found that picture of me. It had several comments, some saying things about my body and others saying things about what the person who posted it should do to me when the day comes. No longer wanting to see this thread, I refreshed the page to see if there was any new activity and saw one new post, timestamped 3 seconds ago. It was a photo of me on my computer looking at the website while sitting on my bed taken from my closet. I grabbed the pocket knife I kept in my underwear drawer and booked it out of my house and down the street at the speed of light, aware that someone was sitting in my damn closet. I'm just glad that they made no move to attack me in those few seconds. I reported this ordeal to the police and they checked my house, but they said they found nothing. They also tried to track down the IP address of the post that was made from my bedroom closet, but said they couldn't trace it. I'm currently writing this from my parents' house and plan on staying with them for a while. I don't know when whoever is doing this was planning their day of attack on, but I'm playing it on the safe side for this one. Realizing that whoever did this must touch my phone as they made the screen recording, I turned it into the police to check for fingerprints. I highly doubt it'll help, but I have to try. I checked back on the site a few minutes ago to see if their posts were still there, and oddly enough, they were. I figured whoever made these posts would be scared enough to delete them to cover their tracks, but they weren't. That wasn't the bad part, though. Going through the new posts, I found a photo. I recognized my front yard and realized this picture had been taken through my blinds. I saw the police talking to me next to their car. Upon translating the caption, it said, "Oh, so close. But I'm the cat, not the mouse."